In 1988, a peaceful outing for 7 elderly residents from a small retirement home turned into one of Chester's most puzzling mysteries when their van suddenly vanished without a trace. Decades passed without answers, leaving behind grieving families and unanswered questions until 33 years later, a young drone enthusiast stumbled upon something hidden deep in Delamere Forest. What his drone captured reignited the chilling mystery, uncovering secrets powerful people desperately wanted to stay buried. Sunny Acres Retirement Home, Chester, August 12, 1988. It was a pleasantly warm morning, the kind that seemed to promise only good things. At Sunny Acres Retirement Home, cheerful voices echoed through the corridors, blending with the soft hum of old jazz tunes drifting from an old transistor radio placed by the window. Samuel Hopkins, a beloved caregiver and driver, hummed along to Louis Armstrong's unmistakable voice as he carefully polished his vintage pocket watch, a treasured heirloom from his father. His deep, resonant voice echoed gently down the halls. Summertime and the livin' is easy. He glanced down the corridor with a warm smile, seeing Margaret Maggie Collins sitting serenely in a sunny corner. Maggie, aged 78, was carefully writing down words into a small notebook, her hand steady despite her years. She smiled faintly as Samuel approached. "Another beautiful poem, Maggie?" She looked up gently, adjusting her small glasses. "Perhaps, Samuel. Maybe it'll be my best one yet." Nearby, Arthur Bennett stood silently by the window, his tall frame straight as always, his gaze quietly observant of the gardens outside. Arthur was 81, a former soldier who spoke little, slept less, and noticed everything. He turned slightly, nodding a quiet greeting to Samuel. "Ready for our adventure, Arthur?" Samuel asked cheerfully. Arthur responded with a brief, courteous nod, offering a slight smile. Samuel knew better than to push Arthur into conversation. His silence had always spoken volumes. In the main hall, Doris Green and Walter Hughes laughed softly. Doris, with her kind eyes sparkling, carefully handed Walter a small, smooth stone. "From that lovely beach in Brighton," she whispered affectionately. "I always promised I'd bring you something special." Walter's eyes brightened, his pocket already filled with small treats to share. "You never forget, Doris." "I never do," she confirmed with a cheerful wink. A short distance away, Eleanor Ellie Ford methodically checked her handbag. Once a nurse, she was meticulous, always prepared for every possibility. Her fingers moved quickly through packets of medicine, bandages, and various ointments. "Everything all right, Ellie?" Samuel asked warmly. "All perfect, Samuel," she replied softly, prepared as always. Finally, near the entrance, James Jim O'Connor, affectionately known to everyone simply as Jim, stood telling yet another tale of his time as a policeman, holding everyone's attention. "There was this one case," Jim said, eyes twinkling mischievously. "I swear it was unsolvable. Still haunts me today." Laughter filled the air. "Maybe today's the day you'll finally solve it, Jim," Samuel teased playfully. Jim smiled and shook his head dramatically. "Samuel, some mysteries are meant to remain mysteries." They all laughed, unaware how prophetic those words would soon become. At precisely 10 a.m., Samuel guided the group outside to a white van parked neatly by the entrance. Spirits were high, laughter infectious. Arthur quietly claimed his usual spot by the window. Maggie took the seat beside him. Doris and Walter settled together behind them, and Ellie sat carefully by Jim, smiling softly as he began yet another story. Samuel closed the door, climbed into the driver's seat, adjusted his mirror, and called out cheerfully, "Next stop, Chester City Center." A gentle cheer rose behind him as he started the engine, steering slowly onto the familiar streets. The route was smooth and familiar, their laughter interwoven with Samuel's gentle humming of old jazz melodies. Upon arriving in Chester, they admired the historic architecture, enjoying the summer breeze. The van parked near a quaint cafe overlooking the River Dee. Samuel opened the door, helping each passenger out carefully. They entered the cafe, welcomed warmly by familiar staff. Coffee, tea, and pastries were quickly ordered, stories exchanged, and the cafe filled with gentle laughter. The morning passed peacefully, marked by warmth and friendship. Each person carried their unique spark. Maggie scribbling quietly, Arthur observing silently, Doris cheerfully recounting her travels, Walter handing out candies, Ellie calmly rearranging the items in her bag, and Jim playfully quizzing Samuel about his pocket watch. Yet, beneath the tranquility lay a sense of quiet anticipation, an unspoken sense of the preciousness of these ordinary moments. By early afternoon, the group climbed back into the van. Samuel began the drive home, following the familiar route that curved gently around Chester. Yet, unbeknownst to any observer, something changed. Witnesses later described how the familiar white van inexplicably turned off the main road, veering unexpectedly towards the dense Delamere forest, far from its intended route. Inside the van, chatter and laughter slowly faded into quiet curiosity. Arthur sat straighter, his military instincts alerting him to the unusual change. Maggie paused her writing, a quiet unease settling in her chest. "Samuel?" Doris asked softly, confusion evident in her voice. "Are we taking a different way home?" Samuel didn't immediately respond, eyes fixed intently ahead. Silence hung heavily over the passengers. "Samuel?" Jim echoed Doris's concern gently, leaning forward. Samuel finally glanced into the rearview mirror, attempting a reassuring smile. "Just a little detour." "Scenic route," he said calmly, though his voice lacked the usual warmth. Ellie clutched her handbag tighter. Walter and Doris exchanged anxious glances. Arthur's eyes narrowed slightly, watching carefully as the trees around them thickened ominously. Minutes stretched uncomfortably long. Maggie's hand trembled slightly, closing her notebook. The van continued deeper into the forest, sunlight fading into eerie patches of shadow and gloom. Then, abruptly, Samuel slowed the vehicle to a halt on a lonely stretch of dirt road, surrounded only by towering trees. "Samuel, what's going on?" Jim asked firmly, his voice edged with worry. Samuel's response was cut short by a sudden, chilling crackling from the radio, followed by static that pierced the silence sharply. The passengers exchanged fearful glances, anxiety mounting rapidly. "Samuel." Arthur's commanding voice echoed clearly, demanding answers. But Samuel sat frozen, eyes locked forward, an inexplicable expression of dread masking his normally cheerful face. Then, without warning, the radio fell silent. The van was swallowed by an oppressive quietness, deeper than mere silence, a stillness suggesting an unnatural interruption. In Chester, family members waiting at Sunny Acres felt the first pangs of worry as the van failed to return. Calls were made, inquiries started, and concern quickly blossomed into full-blown fear. Hours later, dusk descended gently upon the Delamere forest, yet there was no sign of the van or its beloved occupants. The van, with its 7 elderly passengers and Samuel, had simply vanished, leaving no trace behind. The last witnesses insisted they saw the van disappear into the shadows beneath the forest's canopy, a place notorious for its quiet beauty but also for the secrets it had hidden for centuries. As darkness enveloped Chester, authorities were alerted. Robert Fletcher, a detective known for his persistence and detail-oriented approach, received the call that would haunt him for decades. "The Sunny Acres van is missing," his colleague informed him grimly. 7 elderly passengers and their caretaker. Last seen heading into Delamere Forest. Robert Fletcher took a deep breath, knowing instinctively that this case would not be simple. "I'm on my way," Fletcher responded resolutely, unaware that the events about to unfold would become the defining mystery of his career and a haunting legacy that would endure for over 30 years. Asterisk, asterisk. The Delamere Forest stretched endlessly before the search teams, its thick green canopy hiding secrets and whispering silently in the cool breeze. Morning sunlight barely filtered through dense leaves, leaving patches of ground bathed in shadows. The silence was occasionally pierced by the calls of searchers, their voices echoing through the woods. Detective Robert Fletcher stood silently, observing as police officers, volunteers, and specially trained dogs combed every inch of the forest floor. Fletcher, at 35, was already known for his meticulous approach, a man whose reputation rested on relentless attention to detail. Tall, thin, with dark hair that always looked slightly disheveled, Fletcher carried an intensity in his eyes that now scanned every shadow, every broken branch, searching desperately for answers. "Spread out carefully," he instructed his team, his voice calm yet authoritative. "Mark anything unusual." Days had already passed since the Sunny Acres van vanished, and tension was mounting. Families awaited anxiously at the edge of the forest, eyes swollen from sleepless nights and endless tears. Fletcher felt the heavy burden of their hopes resting squarely on his shoulders. Hour by hour, searchers trudged through mud and tangled roots, following winding paths that seemed to lead nowhere. Frustration grew with every false alarm and abandoned shoe, a discarded soda can, nothing tied directly to the missing elderly group. Fletcher noticed one elderly woman, Anna Collins, Maggie's daughter, waiting anxiously at the search perimeter each morning. Her hands tightly gripped Maggie's poetry notebook, the last item her mother had left behind at the home. "Please," Anna pleaded softly to Fletcher each morning, eyes red and desperate. "Please find them." Every plea etched deeper into Fletcher's mind, fueling his obsession. Back at Chester Police Station, Fletcher reviewed every available statement, dissecting each word with obsessive care. His desk overflowed with hastily written notes, photographs, and hastily sketched maps of the forest. He had barely slept since the case began, surviving mostly on coffee and stubborn determination that something bothered Fletcher deeply. Testimonies from witnesses describing the van's movements contradicted the initial police report. 2 eyewitnesses claimed they saw the van deliberately turning toward Delamere Forest, a significant detail omitted from early police documents. Fletcher frowned, tapping a pencil against his desk thoughtfully. Why had the official statements overlooked this? Driven by suspicion, Fletcher visited the elderly home again, carefully re-interviewing the staff and residents. Conversations revealed the depth of emotional scars forming in Sunny Acres rooms that had once echoed laughter now sat silent, heavy with grief. Samuel would never take them off route intentionally, insisted Maria, a longtime caregiver. At the home, eyes misty with emotion. He loved those folks as if they were his family. But Fletcher sensed unspoken hesitation, subtle fears, whispers of doubt. Something wasn't right. Days turned into weeks without any substantial discoveries. Public anxiety intensified, and frustration permeated the entire town. Pressure from local media and politicians grew unbearable, and Fletcher's superiors urged quick resolutions, but Fletcher remained stubbornly methodical. He returned frequently to Delamere Forest, often alone, retracing routes meticulously. Late one afternoon, as the sun dipped behind distant trees, casting a golden hue over the forest floor, Fletcher stumbled upon something buried beneath leaves. Heart racing, he carefully brushed the leaves aside. He found a small cluster of familiar belongings, a packet of candies neatly wrapped, exactly like Walter always carried. Near it lay Ellie's carefully prepared medicine packet. Fletcher's breath quickened. How had previous searches missed these items? Had they been deliberately hidden or overlooked? He urgently called in his team, marking the location carefully. The discovery sparked renewed vigor, pushing searchers deeper into the forest. Yet as the daylight faded, once again, they found no further traces of the group. Fletcher couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that someone was always one step ahead. As days progressed without answers, despair grew among families and townspeople alike. Fletcher faced increasing scrutiny from local officials desperate for closure. Despite mounting political pressures, he stubbornly refused to close the investigation. Late one evening, Fletcher returned alone to the search area near a rarely used alternative road skirting the forest. Something had drawn him here, an instinctive feeling urging him to look closer. Twilight bathed the scene in shades of gray and violet, and as Fletcher moved methodically along the roadside, his flashlight suddenly caught something glinting among tall grass. Heart hammering in his chest, Fletcher kneeled, carefully retrieving a small object partially buried in dirt. It was Samuel's distinctive pocket watch, the heirloom he had always treasured. The hands had stopped at precisely 2:17 p.m., the time eerily matching the last confirmed sighting of the van entering the forest. Fletcher held the watch tightly, feeling a chill run down his spine. This discovery intensified the already profound mystery. Had Samuel thrown it intentionally, hoping someone would find it, or was it lost accidentally in panic? Fletcher stared into the encroaching darkness, haunted by unanswered questions. He returned to the station immediately, requesting additional resources and teams to revisit the location. But upon arriving, Fletcher sensed a troubling change. His colleagues avoided eye contact, conversations abruptly halted as he approached. He felt immediately uneasy. "What's going on?" Fletcher asked sharply, addressing his superior officer, Chief Inspector Tom Reynolds. Reynolds looked visibly uncomfortable, clearing his throat nervously. "Robert, we need to talk." In a closed office, Reynolds delivered news that hit Fletcher like a physical blow. Due to lack of substantial evidence and external pressures, the case has officially been archived. Fletcher stared in disbelief, his voice shaking. "What do you mean archived? We just found Samuel's watch." "There are clues still unexplained." Reynolds lowered his eyes, shoulders slumping under unseen pressures. "It's beyond our control now." The orders came from above. Fletcher felt a surge of anger and helplessness. He argued passionately, detailing inconsistencies, suspicious witness statements, and overlooked clues. But Reynolds simply shook his head sadly, the decision beyond his power. "We're being forced to move on, Robert," Reynolds murmured softly, avoiding Fletcher's eyes. "I'm sorry." Stunned, Fletcher returned to his chaotic desk, the weight of failure heavy upon him. His obsessive determination now clashed violently with frustration and a sense of injustice. This was more than a case, it had become deeply personal, and he knew he couldn't simply let it go. Late that night, alone in the station, Fletcher carefully sealed Samuel's watch in an evidence bag, marking it meticulously. Each action deliberate, symbolic of his refusal to abandon hope. "Entirely," he whispered quietly to himself, a promise to the families still waiting for answers. "This isn't over yet." But the official channels were closed. The case was cold, archived under a mountain of bureaucracy and political maneuvering, leaving Fletcher deeply shaken, scarred by a sense of helplessness he had never known. Outside, rain began falling softly over Chester, as if nature itself mourned the injustice of forgotten souls lost in Delamere Forest. Fletcher stood quietly by the window, staring out into the darkened streets. Haunted by a mystery now officially condemned to remain unsolved. Yet, deep within, Fletcher knew that some mysteries refused to stay buried forever. Asterisk, asterisk. Chester, England, 2021. 33 years had quietly passed, gently erasing the tragedy of Sunny Acres from Chester's collective memory. The town had moved on, new generations had come and gone, yet the whispers of Delamere Forest and its haunting secret lingered faintly in the background. But for Robert Fletcher, now retired, the passage of time had changed nothing. He sat by the window of his modest home on Chester's outskirts, his face lined with age and quiet frustration. On the wall behind him hung an old newspaper clipping with faded letters. Sunny Acres Van mystery remains unsolved. Fletcher had aged, but his obsession had not diminished. Each year that passed without answers etched the burden deeper into his soul, keeping alive the quiet promise he made decades ago never to forget. Yet Fletcher was unaware that miles away, a young man named Adam Foster was about to unknowingly rekindle the flames of this forgotten mystery. Adam Foster, 26 years old, lived in a small apartment filled with photography equipment, stacks of books on aerial imagery, and meticulously arranged shelves displaying various drones. Tall and slender, with untamed dark hair, Adam moved through his space with precise steps. Adjusting each item, he passed to a perfect alignment, his mild obsessive-compulsive nature visible in every careful action. Adam was not famous, nor particularly ambitious. He was simply passionate about capturing the world from above. Chester's landscapes, ancient buildings, and natural beauty were regular subjects of his artistic expression. One crisp autumn morning, Adam carefully prepared his newest drone, a sleek device equipped with a high-definition camera, and headed toward Delamere Forest. He loved exploring its dense greenery, convinced that hidden places held the most intriguing visual stories. Arriving at the forest's edge, Adam inhaled deeply, savoring the cool air filled with the scent of moss and damp leaves. Carefully, he unfolded the drone, ensuring every blade, battery, and camera lens was perfect. Satisfied, he activated the drone with practiced ease, feeling a familiar thrill as it lifted smoothly into the air. The drone climbed steadily above the trees, revealing an endless sea of green beneath a clear, pale sky. Adam's heart quickened as he guided it skillfully, the camera capturing mesmerizing footage, leaves rippling like waves, hidden paths barely visible between thick branches. He maneuvered deeper into the forest, gently flying lower to explore the shadows beneath the dense canopy. Through his monitor, Adam's eyes widened as something unusual appeared, a rust-covered object nestled deep within the trees. Intrigued, he carefully guided the drone closer, breath catching sharply as the image clarified. It was a van, covered in decades of corrosion, nearly camouflaged by the encroaching forest. Adam's pulse quickened. He hovered cautiously, capturing detailed footage. The vehicle standing hauntingly still, an eerie relic frozen in time. After carefully bringing the drone back, Adam reviewed the footage closely, a strange feeling settling in his chest. Something about the van felt inexplicably significant. Determined, he drove directly to Chester Police Station, convinced he had stumbled onto something important. In the station, Adam presented the footage to the officers, hopeful they would share his excitement. But their reactions were dismissive, uninterested. Probably an old abandoned vehicle, one officer shrugged casually. Barely glancing at the screen, Adam insisted, frustration rising. But this isn't just any old vehicle. Look how hidden it is. Someone should at least check it out. Another officer glanced briefly and shook his head. Sorry, mate. Resources are tight. We can't chase every old piece of junk in the forest. Discouraged but undeterred, Adam left the station, determined not to let it end there. Back in his apartment, he uploaded the footage to his photography channel online, adding a simple but provocative title: Mysterious Abandoned Van Discovered in Delamere Forest. Within hours, the video attracted thousands of viewers, generating intrigue and wild speculation among online viewers. Yet none knew the true weight of what Adam had found. Across Chester, Robert Fletcher sat at his kitchen table sipping tea, his television murmuring quietly. He rarely paid attention to the screen, yet a familiar phrase suddenly caught his ear. Abandoned. Van discovered in Delamere Forest, causing an online sensation. Fletcher's heart skipped painfully. His eyes locked onto the TV, footage appearing that jolted his memory sharply. It was the white van, rusty and worn but unmistakable. Emotion surged fiercely, pulling Fletcher into a storm of vivid memories. Samuel's pocket watch ticking softly, candies scattered in forest dirt. The anguished pleas from family members echoing relentlessly in his mind. The past surged violently back, reopening emotional wounds that had never fully healed. Breathing heavily, Fletcher reached for his phone, replaying Adam's footage repeatedly. He analyzed every frame meticulously, each rusty patch familiar, each shadow etched into his mind. It was undeniable. The lost Sunny Acres van had resurfaced after 33 silent years. How is this possible? Fletcher whispered softly, unable to tear his eyes away from the screen. Years of buried frustration reignited fiercely inside him. There was unfinished business to resolve. Justice owed to those forgotten souls. As the video continued playing, Fletcher found himself pacing restlessly around his small home, pulled inexorably into the past. He paused in front of his desk, staring down at a dusty evidence bag inside it. Samuel's stopwatch, a timeless reminder of failure. Maybe now, Fletcher murmured resolutely, I can finally find out what happened. Adam's video continued gaining traction, spawning endless speculation online. Yet Adam himself felt unsettled. The police's dismissal and the bizarre online theories had left him anxious. His inbox flooded with messages from curious locals, conspiracy theorists, and amateur detectives, each with their wild interpretations. Among those messages, one stood out sharply. Fletcher had found Adam's contact details easily and carefully composed his message. Adam Foster, my name is Robert Fletcher. I was the detective originally assigned to the Sunny Acres van disappearance in 1988. Your discovery might finally help me close this painful chapter. I'd appreciate the opportunity to meet and discuss this further. Adam felt his heart race reading the message. It resonated deeply, clarifying why his discovery felt significant. This was no ordinary abandoned vehicle. It was a piece of history, long-buried grief finally uncovered. Back at Fletcher's home, he sat silently, eyes fixed on old case files scattered across his kitchen table. Photographs of smiling elderly faces gazed back at him, each holding silent. Stories begging to be finally told. He gently traced their images: Samuel's joyful grin, Maggie's serene smile, Arthur's steady gaze. These souls haunted Fletcher nightly, their memories compelling him forward. His decision was clear. He could no longer rely on official channels. If the police wouldn't investigate, Fletcher would act himself, enlisting Adam as an unlikely but crucial ally. Their combined determination, Fletcher's experience, and Adam's modern technology could unravel the mystery once and for all. The old detective's heart pounded with renewed purpose. Fletcher stood slowly, staring out into the night sky illuminated softly by moonlight filtering through the clouds. He saw clearly now the path ahead. Taking a deep, steady breath, Fletcher picked up his phone again, dialing Adam's number. When Adam answered, Fletcher's voice carried quiet intensity. Adam, thank you for responding. This discovery means more than you realize. Will you meet me? Together, we might finally uncover the truth hidden for over 3 decades. Silence filled the line momentarily, heavy with anticipation, before Adam answered firmly, his voice equally determined. I'll meet you. Let's finish what you started. Fletcher nodded, feeling hope blossom fiercely after years of darkness. As he ended the call, determination surged powerfully within him. Together, they would finally bring justice to those lost in Delamere Forest. For Robert Fletcher, a retired detective scarred deeply by an unresolved tragedy, this unexpected alliance represented one final chance, a chance to redeem his greatest failure, heal decades-old wounds, and find peace at last. Asterisk, asterisk. The morning sun streamed through the cafe windows, casting a golden hue over Fletcher's old case notes scattered across the table. Fletcher and Adam sat together in a quiet corner of the cafe, overlooking the River Dee. The table between them was cluttered with faded photographs, hand-drawn maps, and newspaper clippings yellowed by time. Adam watched Fletcher closely, struck by the retired detective's intensity. Fletcher's fingers moved deliberately across each piece of evidence, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. We have to retrace every step, Fletcher said firmly. Every detail matters. Adam nodded silently, absorbing the seriousness of Fletcher's tone. For Adam, this was more than an intriguing mystery. He sensed the weight Fletcher carried, the decades of frustration buried within him. Their investigation began at Sunny Acres retirement home. The building, though renovated, retained an unsettling quietness, as if the walls still held memories of its lost residents. Fletcher walked slowly through familiar halls, his footsteps echoing faintly. In a quiet office, they spoke with Maria Jensen, the current director and a former assistant caregiver in 1988. Maria's face darkened when Fletcher mentioned the missing group. Samuel was a kind man, Maria said softly, her eyes glistening. And those elderly residents. Their absence left a lasting emptiness here. Fletcher nodded solemnly. Was there anything unusual in the weeks before their disappearance? Maria hesitated slightly, glancing nervously at Adam before continuing. Arthur Bennett seemed anxious. He often mentioned feeling watched or followed. But everyone thought it was his old war paranoia resurfacing. Fletcher's expression sharpened instantly. Arthur never mentioned specifics. Maria shook her head. Nothing clear. Just vague references to his time in the military something he wanted desperately to leave behind. Outside Sunny Acres, Adam questioned Fletcher. What do we know about Arthur's military past? Fletcher sighed deeply, as though dredging up memories long locked away. Arthur served in a special operations unit during the 1950s. His records were sparse, deliberately obscured, likely classified operations. Something from his past might have followed him home. Their next step was Chester Police Station, where Fletcher's presence stirred quiet discomfort among former colleagues. Officers who remembered Fletcher avoided eye contact, muttering brief greetings. Fletcher approached the desk, requesting archived files from the original investigation. At first, resistance. The officer on duty glanced uncertainly towards a back office. Fletcher leaned forward calmly but assertively. This is a public record. Please retrieve it, now. Reluctantly, the officer complied, returning moments later with a faded box labeled Sunny Acres, 1988. Fletcher immediately noticed signs of neglect. The file appeared untouched for years, pages slightly torn and misplaced. As Fletcher and Adam combed meticulously through documents, Fletcher noticed troubling inconsistencies, statements altered subtly, witness testimonies partially redacted, crucial observations omitted entirely. This isn't accidental, Fletcher murmured, voice tight with frustration. Someone tampered with this file. Adam's heart quickened. Why would anyone interfere? Fletcher shook his head slowly, his expression grim. To hide the truth. Driven by suspicion, Fletcher visited a former colleague, retired Inspector Tom Reynolds, now living quietly in Chester's suburbs. Reynolds, now frail, seemed visibly unsettled seeing Fletcher again after decades. "Robert," Reynolds greeted him cautiously, eyes wary. "It's been years." "Too long," Fletcher responded quietly, studying Reynolds' face carefully. "I'm reopening Sunny Acres." Reynolds visibly flinched, eyes briefly darting away. "That case is dead. Leave it." Fletcher's gaze intensified. "Someone altered the records. Who had access besides us?" Reynolds' silence stretched uncomfortably. Fletcher pressed firmly. "Who wanted this buried?" Reynolds' hands trembled slightly. "I can't help you, Robert. Some things should remain forgotten." Frustration surged through Fletcher. "People died, Tom. Innocent elderly people. They deserve justice." Reynolds looked away, voice lowering. "You don't know what you're dealing with. Let it go." Outside Reynolds' home, Adam glanced nervously at Fletcher. "He's scared." Fletcher nodded grimly, because he knows more than he admits. Their investigation took them next to a secluded library, hunting down obscure military records. Fletcher scoured through faded documents until Arthur Bennett's name appeared on an obscure operations list, missions marked as classified, related to espionage and covert operations during the Cold War. Arthur's unit had been involved in sensitive intelligence operations, operations that could easily provoke powerful enemies. Arthur wasn't just a soldier. Fletcher whispered softly, realization dawning heavily. He was involved in operations that someone wanted permanently silenced. Adam stared at the papers in disbelief, understanding the sinister implications. Clearly, their search was no longer just about finding a lost van. It was about uncovering hidden truths powerful people wanted buried. The investigation intensified further when Fletcher and Adam returned to Delamere Forest. Guided by Adam's drone footage, they found the abandoned van, now cordoned off unofficially with police tape. Fletcher carefully approached, heart heavy, opening the rusted door cautiously. Inside, nothing but decades of neglect, yet the eerie silence carried an overwhelming weight. Fletcher moved slowly, reverently, sensing the lingering presence of those who vanished. As evening approached, their investigation at the van was abruptly interrupted. Fletcher's phone buzzed sharply, a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging into the past, or it will bury you." Chilled silence settled heavily between them. Adam glanced nervously toward Fletcher. "What now?" Fletcher's jaw tightened determinedly. "Now we know we're close." Returning hastily to Adam's apartment, tension thickened. Fletcher's mind raced, attempting to connect threads deliberately concealed. Who sent the threat, and how deep did the conspiracy run? Late that night, Fletcher paced restlessly in Adam's small living room, agitated by the threatening message. Adam watched, troubled by the gravity of the situation yet inspired by Fletcher's relentless drive. "They're trying to scare us," Fletcher said quietly, pausing thoughtfully. "That means we're close, dangerously close to the truth." Adam hesitated slightly. "Maybe we should stop." Fletcher shook his head decisively. "We can't, not now." Arthur Bennett's secrets, Samuel's vanished van, these aren't random events. People powerful enough to manipulate police records have hidden something deeply disturbing. We owe it to the families and ourselves to finish this. Outside, darkness enveloped Chester. The forest seemed to whisper secrets through the window, calling them back into its shadowed depths. Fletcher turned suddenly, decisive determination shining fiercely in his eyes. "We need to return to Delamere Forest tonight." Adam's eyes widened. Anxiously, "At night?" Fletcher's voice was resolute. "Yes, Whoever threatened us won't expect immediate action. Darkness gives us cover. If there's anything left to find, now is the time." Adam hesitated, absorbing the weight of Fletcher's decision. Finally, he nodded firmly, matching Fletcher's resolve. "All right, let's do this." Fletcher placed a reassuring hand briefly on Adam's shoulder, eyes filled with gratitude. Together, these two unlikely allies prepared quietly flashlights, cameras, and Adam's drone fully charged. They knew clearly the risks awaiting them, yet the possibility of finally revealing the truth outweighed every feared dot as they stepped into the night. Moving silently toward Delamere Forest, Fletcher felt a surge of determination stronger than any threat could extinguish. Tonight, shadows of the past would finally surrender their secrets, no matter the danger. Tonight, justice awaited them beneath the silent, watchful trees of Delamere Forest. Night had settled deeply over Chester. The sky was moonless, cloaking Delamere Forest in a profound darkness, broken only occasionally by the flickering beams of flashlights as Fletcher and Adam carefully advanced into the woods. Each step echoed through the silent forest, leaves crunching softly beneath their feet. Fletcher walked slowly, flashlight scanning methodically. His heart pounded hard in his chest. Years of unresolved mysteries were culminating in this tense, dangerous moment. Adam, close behind, guided his drone quietly through gaps in the dense canopy. Its soft humming noise sounded unsettling in the silence, yet reassuring. The drone's infrared camera transmitted clear images onto Adam's handheld monitor, revealing paths invisible to the naked eye. Fletcher glanced back, whispering quietly, "Keep your eyes open. We're not alone out here." Adam nodded nervously, eyes scanning the drone's monitor carefully. Each shadow and shifting shape seemed more threatening in the dark. Every rustle, every distant snap of branches made him jump. Fletcher led them to the exact spot where the abandoned van rested. In the flashlight's eerie glow, it appeared ghostly silent, still, haunted by history. Fletcher paused, heart heavy, glancing solemnly inside once more. Then he moved past the van, deeper into the woods. His flashlight swung carefully over the ground, illuminating every leaf and branch. Suddenly, Fletcher stopped abruptly, his light catching something unusual near a cluster of twisted roots. He knelt swiftly, brushing away dirt and leaves with trembling fingers. Adam watched anxiously, his drone hovering silently overhead. Slowly, Fletcher revealed a shallow hole containing carefully buried personal belongings, a leather wallet, Doris's small stone collection, Walter's candies neatly wrapped, Ellie's medicine packets. Each item buried deliberately. This was intentional. Fletcher murmured softly, voice heavy with realization. Someone tried to erase every trace. Adam's breath quickened, realization dawning heavily. But why here? Who would hide evidence so carefully? Fletcher continued digging carefully, breath catching sharply as his fingers brushed something firmer. From beneath the items, he retrieved a small, rusted metal box, locked tightly. "Help me," Fletcher whispered urgently. Together, they pried open the corroded lock. Inside lay a bundle of documents, tightly sealed in waterproof plastic, clearly placed by someone hoping they'd be found eventually. Fletcher carefully opened the plastic, revealing papers marked confidential, faded yet readable. His flashlight illuminated the words clearly, records, detailing substantial financial transactions and letters, bearing official government seals, names of prominent Chester officials clearly visible. Adam stared in disbelief. These are bribes. Payments to officials, police, everyone involved in the investigation. Fletcher's voice was tight with suppressed fury. They buried their corruption along with those innocent lives. Suddenly, A chilling sound broke through the darkness, a sharp crack, branches snapping underfoot nearby. Fletcher and Adam froze, turning their flashlights toward the sound. Silence pressed upon them heavily. Then another crack, closer. "Someone's here," Fletcher hissed urgently. "We need to move." They hurriedly secured the documents, turning swiftly toward the path they'd entered. Yet before they could move further, another sound erupted, heavy footsteps running rapidly toward them. Adam's heart thundered with panic, a sudden burst of movement from the darkness. Two shadowy figures emerged swiftly, masked, carrying blunt weapons. Without warning, one swung violently toward Fletcher. Instinctively, Fletcher ducked, narrowly avoiding the blow. Adam stumbled backward, drone controls slipping from his grasp, crashing uselessly to the ground. "Run!" Fletcher shouted, grabbing Adam's arm and pulling him through thick undergrowth. The attackers pursued relentlessly, their breathing heavy. Aggressive steps closing rapidly behind. Branches whipped their faces painfully. Fletcher's heart pounded wildly, lungs burning fiercely. Yet fear propelled them forward through the tangled forest. The attackers shouted threats, voices distorted. Through masks, menacing and angry. "Stop now, or you'll regret it." Ignoring the threats, Fletcher and Adam sprinted, weaving through trees until finally emerging onto the deserted roadside. Gasping for air, glancing back, their pursuers hesitated at the forest's edge, unwilling to follow onto open ground. They watched silently as Fletcher and Adam staggered toward their parked vehicle, fading into shadows once more. Back at Adam's apartment, silence settled heavily between them. Fletcher carefully spread the recovered documents across the kitchen table, hands trembling slightly. Adam paced restlessly, adrenaline still surging. "They knew we were coming," Adam whispered, voice shaking. "Someone wants this buried permanently." Fletcher nodded grimly. "We're exposing dangerous secrets. Powerful people risk everything if this surfaces." Adam approached quietly, eyes scanning the documents once more. Then he noticed something, an audio cassette marked clearly, Jim O'Connor. August 1988. Adam retrieved an old cassette player from a dusty closet, hands shaking as he inserted the tape. Fletcher leaned forward, heart racing with anticipation. Static crackled softly. Then a familiar voice emerged clearly, Jim O'Connor, steady, solemn tone. "If you're hearing this, something terrible has happened. Arthur Bennett discovered evidence of severe corruption involving high-ranking Chester officials, bribery, illegal dealings, secrets worth killing over. Arthur wanted to expose them, but feared retaliation. Samuel knew everything, hoping to help Arthur safely deliver evidence to authorities during our outing. If we vanish, know this. Mayor Jonathan Reynolds orchestrated everything. Justice must prevail. Don't let our silence become theirs." The tape stopped abruptly, leaving chilling silence. Fletcher's eyes widened in shock, mind reeling with disbelief. Mayor Reynolds, Tom Reynolds' older brother, Chester's beloved politician, was behind everything. "This explains Tom's silence," Fletcher murmured bitterly. Protecting his brother at all costs, Adam exhaled shakily. "We have proof. We can expose them now." Fletcher hesitated slightly, shaking his head slowly. "Not yet. Official channels failed us once already. Reynolds controls too much influence, police, media, politicians." Adam frowned, confused. "What else can we do?" Fletcher's eyes darkened determinedly. "We confront Reynolds directly, publicly. Tomorrow night is Chester's annual gala event. Reynolds will speak publicly. If we confront him openly, cameras rolling, he'll be forced to respond." Adam hesitated anxiously. "It's risky." Fletcher nodded solemnly. "It's the only way." We corner him publicly, demand answers in front of everyone. If he panics or denies, it'll raise immediate suspicion. He'll be vulnerable." Adam swallowed hard, understanding the gravity clearly. "You really think he'll confess?" Fletcher's jaw tightened firmly. "Maybe not openly, but pressure might lead to mistakes. Either way, the truth surfaces." Silence settled between them, heavy with anticipation. Adam finally nodded decisively. "We have to try." Fletcher placed a reassuring hand on Adam's shoulder. "Whatever happens, know you've already brought hope back. Those forgotten souls won't remain silenced forever." Together, they stood in quiet resolve, minds steeling against uncertainties ahead. Tomorrow night would change Chester forever, justice finally emerging from decades-old shadows. Outside, the first rays of dawn gently painted the horizon, chasing away darkness momentarily. Fletcher watched silently, heart aching yet hopeful. Knowing daylight brought more than morning dot, it brought truth, justice, finally within reach. Asterisk. The Grand Hall at Chester Town Hall glowed brightly under glittering chandeliers, a stark contrast to the dark secrets hidden for decades. Men and women in formal attire mingled comfortably, laughter echoing softly beneath vaulted ceilings. Waiters moved gracefully, carrying trays filled with delicate glasses. It was Chester's annual gala and evening, dedicated to civic pride and the accomplishments of its beloved Mayor Jonathan Reynolds. Robert Fletcher stood near the entrance, his presence unnoticed amid the joyous celebration. Beside him, Adam nervously adjusted his jacket, his fingers trembling slightly. "You ready?" Fletcher murmured quietly, his voice steady despite the heavy weight of their impending actions. Adam exhaled slowly, eyes focused on the stage ahead. "We've come too far to turn back now." Fletcher nodded solemnly, eyes scanning the room intently, heart heavy with anticipation. Suddenly, the orchestra quieted. All eyes turned toward the stage as Mayor Jonathan Reynolds stepped forward, confident and charismatic, smiling warmly. Reynolds, respected and trusted by all, was unaware that tonight would change everything. "Good evening, friends and neighbors." Reynolds began smoothly. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our city's past, but its bright future. Mayor Reynolds." Fletcher's voice echoed sharply through the hall, silencing the room instantly. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the aging detective. Fletcher stepped confidently into the spotlight, gaze locked firmly onto Reynolds, whose face paled slightly in confusion and sudden recognition. Reynolds attempted to maintain composure, forcing a cautious smile. "Mr. Fletcher, is something wrong?" "Yes," Fletcher said clearly, voice unwavering. "Something is very wrong, Mayor. Something that happened in this city 33 years ago, involving innocent lives lost and truths deliberately hidden." Murmurs filled the hall immediately, tension crackling through the crowd. Adam moved silently to Fletcher's side, holding Jim O'Connor's cassette tape and the documents they'd uncovered clearly in view. Reynolds' eyes flickered nervously, yet his smile remained forced, strained. "I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting." Fletcher's voice deepened firmly, echoing clearly for everyone to hear. On August 12, 1988, 7 elderly residents of Sunny Acres Retirement Home vanished with their caregiver. Their disappearance was no accident, it was deliberate sabotage. Arthur Bennett and Jim O'Connor discovered evidence of severe corruption involving powerful figures in this city. You orchestrated their silence by forcing their van off the 2 road. Mayor Jonathan Reynolds' gala speech is shattered when retired Detective Robert Fletcher interrupts, presenting hidden documents and an old cassette proving the mayor's decades-long corruption. As Jim O'Connor's recorded accusation echoes through the hall, the stunned audience watches Reynolds crumble. Cornered, he confesses that he arranged the elderly group's van accident to silence Arthur Bennett and Jim after they uncovered damning evidence. Fletcher explains the cover-up. The forced crash killed 7 innocents. Jim was later captured, and clues were buried in Delamere Forest. Police arrest Reynolds on the spot. In the turbulent days that follow, officials are held accountable. Families finally receive justice, and a memorial is erected. At a heartfelt ceremony, Fletcher returns Maggie's recovered poetry journal to her daughter, bringing closure and honoring the unbreakable bonds of love and memory. Asterisk.